I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're talking about an issue that is of primary importance to the American people and all across this country. We have seen progressive policies that are supporting criminals, and they're putting innocent Americans at risk. It is happening every day. Compared to mid-2019, America's largest cities have seen a 50% increase in homicides and a 36% increase in aggravated assaults. Just last week in Memphis, there was a sick criminal that went on a shooting rampage and killed 3 innocent victims. Senator Hagerty and I are introducing the Restoring Law and Order Act to increase resources to state and local law enforcement agencies to help them in combating violent crime. Our bill will establish a federal grant program to hire more police officers and detectives focused on violent crimes such as rape, murder, carjacking. Additionally, it will increase resources to target drug crimes and funding for state law enforcement agencies. Eliza Fletcher, a mother of 2 young boys, an elementary school teacher, was senselessly murdered while on a morning run. In September 2021, her alleged killer raped an innocent victim. It took a year for Memphis police to receive the results and have the rape kit processed by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Tragically, the rape kit was returned the same day that Fletcher's body was discovered, with DNA allegedly matching that of Fletcher's killer. Had it not taken so long, Eliza Fletcher would be alive today, and her killer would be behind bars. Another component of the Restoring Law and Order Act will require the GAO to study what is happening with the rape kits. Why is it taking so long to get these processed when it is a violent crime? Why does it take so long to get these returned to law enforcement so that they are able to apprehend these criminals? We need to increase resources for law enforcement, root out weak on crime prosecutors and judges, and keep violent criminals locked up. If you do the crime, it is imperative that you serve the time. Senator Hagerty and I have been great partners. We are working with the mayor of the city of Memphis. We are offering solutions to combat this violent crime wave that is plaguing our nation and our cities. Senator Hagerty is leading a letter to the president to be certain that he immediately steps up and deploys all resources available to help with this crime wave. At this time, I want to turn it to Senator Hagerty.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn, and thank you all for being here today. The American public has had enough. The crime wave that's rolling across our country is tragic. As Senator Blackburn mentioned, we're seeing record high levels of crime in every major city. Memphis saw a record high this past year alone. We've got to step up and do something about this, and we've had an administration that prioritizes anything but dealing with crime. In fact, as many of the members of this administration were running for office, I think about Vice President Kamala Harris, she actually raised funds to bail out criminals early. One of those criminals that her fund bailed out just a few weeks ago murdered somebody 3 weeks after being released on bail that now Vice President Harris's fund provided. We've got to turn away from this weak on crime sort of environment. It starts at the top. The tone at the top right now has got to be much more stringent and much stronger. As Senator Blackburn mentioned, we are working on legislation right now that will address this, but we're moving more urgently. The letter that we sent this week to President Biden, encourages him, and we're ready to work with him to step up, to address this problem, to use some of the tried and true principles that have already worked. You think back to the Trump administration, Operation Legend was a process that worked, that helped address this sort of crime and helped address it in our state alone. So we need to properly resource law enforcement now. We'll work on it through legislation, but the President has the ability to step up right now and help us address this. We're calling on him to do that. And I look forward to my colleagues and I working together to make certain we get this problem addressed. Thank you.
Senator Grassley?
Thanks to you two Tennessee colleagues for leading this effort, and if all 98 other senators were speaking up on this subject, we'd probably get something done in regard to it. Well, you've heard all about the fact that Americans face a violent crime wave, especially in our blue cities. Compared to 2019, repeating what Senator Blackburn said, 50% increase in murders, 36% increase in assaults. This is all because of progressive pro-criminal prosecutors and radical bail reforms and defunding of police, fueling the spike in crime that we're all repeatedly telling you about, because it lets repeat criminals go unpunished and in some cases even uncharged. Majority of violent crimes are committed by just a relatively small number of people, tend to be repeat offenders. And what we heard from these Tennessee colleagues, the recent tragedy in Memphis, the dangers that families face at the hands of these repeat and chronic criminals is pretty clear. Federal law enforcement can do more, and you heard how Senator Blackburn tends to work towards that direction with new legislation. In July, I introduced a bill entitled Combating Violent and Dangerous Crimes, meant to make it easier for federal prosecutors to go after murders and carjackings. This bill has 26 Republican co-sponsors. The House has a forthcoming companion bill. I urge my Democrat colleagues to join this effort to fight violent crime, because in a bipartisan way we can get more done. Thank you.
Senator Johnson?
Well, I also want to thank Senator Blackburn and Senator Hagerty for their leadership on this issue, and also Senator Grassley, who's been steadfast in being tough on crime. The statistics in Wisconsin and Milwaukee are equally grim. 2019, we had 106 homicides. The next year, 197. 2021, 205. And this year, we're 40% above those levels at 161 year to date. It's important to understand that these grim statistics didn't just happen. This was caused by radical left, soft on crime policies. For example, the defund police movement. In 2008, Wisconsin had 14,400 law enforcement officers. Today we have 13,400, 1,000 less. And as I talk to local sheriffs, their recruitment numbers are way down. Where they used to maybe have 100 recruits, they maybe got a dozen now. It's because the policies, the rhetoric of the radical left is dispiriting law enforcement. Who is going to keep us safe? How can we expect to protect our citizens and our communities if we attack the police, if we propose defunding? Now, the radical left realized that was not particularly popular, so they're running away from that as fast as they can, but that's really what they believe. Don't let them pull the wool over your eyes. In Wisconsin, our Governor Evers and Lieutenant Governor Barnes started the administration with a goal of reducing the prison population by 50%, cut it in half. They unfortunately have already cut it down by 15%. They released at least 884 criminals. Only 11%, about 100 of those, were nonviolent. The rest of them were all imprisoned for violent crimes, including 44 child rapists, 270 criminals who either committed, and most of them committed, or attempted murder. These people are now released and free on the streets, if not in Wisconsin, maybe in a city near you. Now, I just have to go through 5 examples of who has been released. A 79-year-old male randomly murdered a young mother who worked at a La Crosse hospital, raping, stabbing, and strangling her after spotting her through her home's picture window while driving past. They were strangers. A 54-year-old male is convicted domestic abuser who sexually assaulted a female relative who was under age 13 at the time. A 62-year-old male aided in the gang rape and near beheading of a young woman who was left to die in a manure pit. Prosecutors said the biker gang members slashed the woman's throat. A 79-year-old male who shot and decapitated his wife with a large kitchen knife and then tried to burn her head in a wood-burning stove. And finally, a 56-year-old male shot and killed his mother, stepfather, and 8-year-old half-sister while they slept inside the family mobile home. He told his sister he was planning to get rid of everyone in the family to have a free run of the home. These are just 5 of the approximately 784 violent criminals that radical leftists, Wisconsin's governor and Lieutenant Governor Barnes, have let out to prey on our fellow citizens. These people have to be stopped.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Senator. I'm not going to quote to you the statistics. You know them. I'll just mention it in the largest city in my state, New Orleans, homicides are up 40%. Robberies are up. Carjackings have become a huge problem. And that's not just in New Orleans. We have a serious crime problem, for example, in Baton Rouge. Long term, we can debate the solutions to crime, but short term, in my judgment, we have to do 3 things. Number 1, we've got to hire more cops. In New Orleans, for example, we have less than 1,000 police officers on the streets. We need at least 2,000. That's going to cost money, about which I'll speak in a second. Number 2, we're going to have to stop the retirements among our police officers. They're retiring in droves. It's going to cost more money, in part, to keep them from retiring. I mentioned money on number 1 and number 2 because we live in the real world. But let me say that the state and local government has more money today across America than it has ever had. In large part, not totally, but in large part because we sent it to them. And they need to use that money. The third thing we need to do to get control of crime won't cost any money, but it may be the most difficult of all 3 of the things we have to do. We have to improve the morale of our cops. And that starts with our elected officials. I want to choose my words carefully here. No one supports police abuse. No one does. Do we have some bad cops? Sure. And when a cop intentionally breaks the law himself or herself and hurts somebody else, they should be punished. And in most cases, they are. But on the other hand, cops are not guilty until proven innocent. And we have a lot of, as Senator Johnson talked about, we have a lot of public officials that have taken up this mantra of disrespect the police. Not just defund them, but disrespect them. And we've paid a price in terms of morale. We have some elected officials who think cops are now a bigger problem than criminals. We have some elected officials who think that if a cop shoots a criminal, it's always the cop's fault. But if a criminal shoots a cop, it's always the gun's fault. That's the source of bad morale among our police officers. They don't want a free ride. They just want to know that if they have to make a split-second decision in good faith and someone gets hurt, that their government will stand behind them. And that's got to change as well. And I'm very disappointed that we've heard nothing, zero, zilch, nada out of the Biden administration in terms of supporting our police.
Senator Braun.
We've heard zilch out of the Biden administration because it would be hard for them to explain how we've gotten to this point, especially when their party has run most of the administrations, even the politics within the police forces in the 25 or 30 largest cities. That's a hard thing to justify to where you'd do an about face. I was up in the region, that's a part of Indiana that's just inside the state near Chicago, 35 police officers over the break, and they wanted to get together, frustrated, because record levels of fentanyl and cocaine are flooding the streets in a place like Indiana. And cited what Senator Johnson talked about. They only had 16, I think, applicants into their police academy, which would be record lows on top of record low staffing. I mean, when you have an open border policy that's inviting drugs into our country, where you have a cocaine and now fentanyl, even rainbow pills out there, and it gets into the heartland of our country, Indiana, that is hard to explain how it got there. I got the opportunity to interview Merrick Garland maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, ask him if he was going to pursue with the same enthusiasm the people that broke the law in these cities, burned their own downtowns and their businesses. And he told me, yes, we'll pursue that with the same enthusiasm of what they've been focusing on January 6th. That has not materialized. What kind of message does that send to the people we count on? When I was in Indy 3-4 weeks ago, walking from the Capitol to Monument Circle, having to dodge folks on the street in the middle of the day, it's gotten to the heartland. That would be the homeless component of it, where the drugs and all the other stuff are rampant as well. It is our responsibility to point that out, to articulate it, not let a party that thinks, for instance, like yesterday, they can brag about the Inflation Reduction Act, when on the corner of the screen, the market is tanking. And everything, again, that related to that big issue, they are solely responsible for that. So, thank you for bringing this to the forefront. Crime in our cities, the open border, and the economy that was the strongest economy I can ever remember, and I was a part of it for 37 years pre-COVID. Host of issues that we need to articulate, hold them accountable.
Thank you all so much. You know, when you look at the rhetoric that is out there, this defund the police, disrespect the police, be compassionate to criminals has not served this nation well. As I talk to Tennesseans, they want to fully fund the police and make certain that criminals are locked up and not able to commit these violent crimes. They're also very concerned about some of this language from the left that has made heroes of criminals and has disrespected law enforcement